Leader, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. So many questions. So I believe that a lot of this is descended from Andrew McEwen's work. Someone that knows better can correct me or agree or something. Andrew, I see him there. Welcome.
Meeting. Thank you. Yeah, I haven't been to a fourth meeting in many, many years. Am I on camera? I can't. It's been a while since.
You are.
All right, so I can't see myself, but you can see whatever I can see. Yeah, that code was taken from Macintosh fourth implementation called Neon, which was one of the first Macintosh programming languages at all. And it was a fourth derivative that used this style of object orientation. And I ported that to, well, I have an ANS4th version, and also became part of Win32.4. So it has a long history. Yeah.
So if anyone has questions for Bill, one of the things that you might do is ask them now, and Andrew might help, or other hecklers might chip in. I have always said, if I don't know the answer, I'll make one up for you. But you don't want that. My first question would be, if I was looking at this talk and I was really excited about doing this, what would I do to learn how to do it? And I guess the answer is wait for Bill's book to come out. But I'm impatient. So anyone have any input on what you do to figure this out other than get a copy of the mentioned Windows and start playing with it?
Yeah, I don't I honestly don't know where it is except on a book, in the piece of paper in the book. But there was a paper, I think I presented a paper at Formal that described kind of the theory behind it. But I don't, that may or may not be useful for somebody. It wasn't written as a tutorial. It was more of, this is this cool thing I found out and this is how it works. But I honestly don't know where I go to find a copy of that I could share. But there must be Win32.4 documentation around somewhere.
Yeah, Bill is writing a book.
Yeah,
I would have taken this opportunity to annoy him about it, but it's a solo effort, and so you'll have to just be patient until he completes it. Or just load up the fourth and install it and start fiddling around with it. Some of the documentation comes with the package, so it's not impossible to figure it out. And Bill gave you a couple of good hints there in terms of seeing the disassembly or decompilation from memory of that code. And if nothing else, Bill's always been forthcoming in terms of responding to inquiries. So maybe we'll ask him next month about where you're going to learn. Any other questions for Andrew while we have him? Did I mention? Thank you for being here, Andrew.
Glad to be here. Yeah, I may write some fourth in the future. I've got a couple ideas for some programs I want to write, and I realize I don't really have a functioning fourth system at hand. Other ones, the ones I wrote, which don't really work very well. I also can't run I have no way to run Win32.4. So I have a Linux box and I have a ARM-based Macintosh, and I don't think either one of them I can figure out how to run Win32.4. So
Well, I don't know. You want Ting's old laptop? You might be
Oh, yeah,
able to.
I heard Ting is no, he passed away. He died, right?
Yes,
I
Ting
heard about
passed away a while ago. We have some bits and pieces of stuff. I think I gave one of our colleagues his was it a Novix that I sent to
that.
Florida? Anyway, I think it's been framed now and it's holds a place of honor on the wall of some fourth aficionado. All
I
right.
think Brad Nelson's Forth runs in a browser. There's a JavaScript based version of Forth that can. There's also versions that run on the ESP32 chips
Yep.
that are pretty good.
I honestly, I won't have any trouble. I mean, worst come to worst, I'll just fire up G4, right? Because it's there and it's everywhere.
There you go. Or buy an inexpensive laptop off of eBay that is running last year's version of Windows, as unpalatable as that may be.
Yeah,
Ed Baraski says in the chat, I might be able to get Win32 Forth running on Linux. Give me a couple of days. Don't extend yourself on that effort until you have a commitment from Andrew that he wants it.
yeah, no,
But it might be fun.
I don't know what I want. So part of the reason I'm here is I just retired. So I almost exactly 40 years since I started work. So now I have projects to do that never got done. And so I'm going through lists of things I wanted to work on. And so it's like, hey, what's going on in Forth these days? I'll come back. And I watched a few of the videos and,
Cool.
So maybe but yeah, it's got a little time, so I'll find something. Probably not going to do anything till winter because I got I got plenty of work to do in the summer around here. So.
What were you retiring from, if you don't mind my asking?
So my last job, I was a principal engineer at Amazon, but not in the cloud side, in the embedded. So we were doing. Well, the project never did get disclosed because it ended before it got public. But it was automotive infotainment related, and I've been doing infotainment for the last 25 years. So before Amazon, I was at General Motors, and then I worked for some automotive suppliers before that. None of it using Forth at all.
There was a killer app for the I think it was pre-green arrays, so it was those people whose name we don't speak. And the killer app was to divide up a car into sections and phase the sounds coming from the speakers so that the front seat couldn't hear what the back seat was playing. And I believe there's at least one car that can do that trick now.
Mm-hmm.
With basically noise canceling technology, but much more sophisticated and zoned. And so it's a Forth application by heritage, if nothing else.
But
I guess you couldn't get those chips anymore if you needed to put them into cars.
Yeah.
And green arrays wasn't picked up for that. I guess those folks had hearing aids that they were working on as well, and that's a technology that has burst on the scene since hearing aids are no longer a prescription item. Shall we do the screenshot, Brad? Are we ready to do that at this time? Turn on your camera if you want to be immortalized on the website as being here at this meeting. The folks that don't want their pictures on the website, we're recording the meeting, so you're going to be on YouTube regardless. If you said anything, and you could read things about what gets recorded and what's not. So, Brad looks ready.
All right. Count of 3. 1, 2. I'm going to do one more because I didn't like the way that looked. Let's see. 1 second. 1, 2, 3. All right. Got it.
So when he counts to 3, just imagine that it's a sniper round and it's going to take a while to get downrange.
Yeah, this one turned out all right.
So Siva says in the chat, anyone noticing the echo? Not sure if it is an issue with my device. I don't hear an echo. If you heard an echo during Bill's talk, it's you. No comments from the peanut gallery, so I assume everyone agrees with me. Okay.
There was some noise, but it came and went.
Okay. Yeah, somebody was talking about something, and I guess Brad muted them because I was away from my keyboard and didn't get back in time to pull a plug on whoever it was. I remembered to tell everybody to turn off their microphones before we started, and everybody should be well acquainted with that. But I'm always amazed these days how many people don't understand the difference between reply all and reply. So, and the other thing is that they don't understand that you don't need to reply to every email. It's just one of those things. You know, the assumptions about when you're going to respond to an email just frighten me. You know, there are some people that just assume that you're going to respond to their email within 30 seconds. And then there are some people that never respond to their email. The rule is 24 hours. You should not expect a response sooner than 24 hours, although some people say, you know, for routine matters, it can be up to 72 hours. The expectation of a response is, you know, for things that require a response, you should get back to me within 24 hours, but I shouldn't expect you to get back sooner, and you shouldn't expect to go longer than. But that's just me and the books that I've read and the people that I've heard pronouncements from that are sane. Paul says in the chat, email is not as reliable as it once was. Email was never particularly spectacularly reliable, but then again, the US mail has never been spectacularly reliable either. It reminds me, are they still in Chicago? Or are they still finding storage lockers filled with mail that just wasn't delivered? I don't know. So Chicago at one time was the epicenter of people not delivering mail and cars being towed away, and various mayors and governors being sent to prison. Dave, any rebuttal?
There was a famous towing company called Lincoln Park Pirates, and it was immortalized in a song by somebody. And I think I had experienced Lincoln Park Pirates at one time myself.
Yes, the lyric goes, "Oh, away, tow them away. The Lincoln Park Pirates are we."
Yep.
Folk singers are great at revealing problems in society. They've raised the fare on the subway, and there was a song, did he ever return? No, he never returned, and his fate is still unlearned. He may ride forever on the whatever subway line. He's the man who never returned.
I'm from Boston. Let me add to that story. So what they did is they made it that you pay when you left the subway, not when you went in. So it was possible for someone to get into the subway and not be able to get out. And that's why this story about the man who never returned showed up.
You could always get out if there was a fire or other problem. They didn't have you walled in.
Correctly.
They just strongly encouraged you to pay before you left. These days, I think you can get on BART, and I don't think it's possible to pay with cash in certain instances. So you have to have some means of yes, thank you. Brad put the link to the YouTube video of Charlie on the MTA. But those were two of my favorite folk songs from a bygone era. I guess I heard a story on NPR this morning. They were interviewing a folk singer, and he was commenting on their role in social commentary. So apparently, it's not dead. At least not if you're in the NPR demographic or audience. Does anyone have something they'd like to talk about? I'm going to light the fuse on Bob Armstrong about 11. Bob, if you find that we're going past 11, point out that we have done that.
Oh.
Okay. Hi, Bob.
Hello. Ready to go anytime. Let me share.
Well, not yet. I'm saying
Oh.
about 11. I'd like to.
Oh, actually, of course, me, it's 19 minutes after 11, so yeah.
When I say a time, it's PDT.
Yep.
It's an hour after Pacific Standard Time. And I think it's either 7 or 9 hours from GMT. And Bob is on Denver time, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I get to these British APL Association meetings, which are on British summertime now. And there's about a month lag between our switching to daylight and their switching to summer. But
Yeah.
otherwise, right on GMT. But it's interesting that get one guy from the APL group from the West Coast. So it's always tea time in England.
Yeah, I wonder if MeetUp adjusts the time for you. When you go to MeetUp, is the start time of the meeting in PDT, or you don't go to MeetUp?
I can't remember which, some of them do, some of them don't. You always have to look to go and see whether it's, what time they really mean.
So someone who's not in the Bay Area or on Pacific time, can you tell me, does MeetUp adjust the time to your zone? I tried once to get it to go to GMT, but it didn't seem to want to do that. It wanted to be local time and local meetings in person focused. Okay. While we're on the subject of Meetup, Paul says, yes, it does. Great. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Jose. While we're on the subject of Meetup, I noticed that most of you, many of you have not registered for this meeting. If you're not allergic to Meetup, and I can understand how Meetup doesn't appeal to you, there are aspects of Meetup that do not appeal to me. If you are not allergic to Meetup and Meetup doesn't appeal to you, or does appeal to you, or at least you're willing to tolerate it, you can register for the meeting as having attended after the meeting, or now. Now would be good. It's free to go to Meetup, as they'll be asking you for money, I'm pretty sure. You don't need to pay them anything. So ignore the requests for money. If you've had problems with Meetup, we can talk about that now or later. But it helps our numbers when lots of people say that they came to the meeting or that they're going to come to the meeting. If you are watching this on YouTube, there'll be a short window in which you can say, I went to the meeting. So if you're watching this right away, try going to Meetup and saying, yeah, I was there. If you're watching this on YouTube in the future, if you're going to be coming to the YouTube but aren't coming to the meeting, I think it's fair to say that you plan to attend the meeting. So you need to boost our numbers, do the algorithm things. You can go in advance and say to Meetup that you want to get the announcements, and that you want to, when you get the announcement, say, yes, I plan to be at the meeting. So I'm grateful to those of you that did register to attend this meeting, and in the future, encourage those of you that didn't to go do that. End of scree, end of rant.
Kevin?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I tried Meetup this time. I got signed up 3 times, I think.
Yeah.
How did this happen? Before, it was very difficult to get through all their jumbo, but this time I don't know, I just did it a little bit differently than Wham. I got like 3 different meetings or announcements of the same thing, and it was cluttering my email.
Yep. Meetup that's its purpose, is to clutter your email. It's like insurance companies have 2 main focuses for their business: collecting premiums, denying claims.
That's right.
The focus for Meetup is asking for money and cluttering your inbox. I don't know. It also seems that some of our folks have had difficulty locating the agenda on Meetup. If you've had problems that you don't want to discuss right now, I recommend that you contact me offline, porther@comcast.net. Before we stop talking about Meetup, nobody else has anything else about Meetup, I would like to thank Leon and Fourth Incorporated for sponsoring our year's worth of Meetup. Leon has been very generous to us in that regard, and my wife has been disinclined to have me pay for it. And it's partly her money too, and I'm on board with that. Thank you, Leon. And we should all be grateful to Leon that we don't have to start charging admission to the meeting or any of that crap, because it's not consistent with my feeling about the philosophy of these meetings. So anyone else have topics for discussions? I'd like to go around the room and ask you what your first fourth was and what the platform was. My first fourth was on the Ohio Scientific C1P or Superboard, and it was a 6502 processor, and it was the first time I had a floppy disk, and I bought something that turned out to be an adaptation of Fig Fourth. There was a little bit of stuff that you had to do to get it to boot on that platform. A lot of things that were implemented on the Superboard of the OSI C1P were eccentric. So Brad, do you remember how you first leapt into this world?
So I first encountered Forth mentioned in a book, and I'm every time this topic comes up, I'll probably afterwards find the book title back and paste it in. But it was a book on a variety of programming languages that existed at some certain moment in the 1980s. But the first Forth that I actually played around with was not till much later, and it was a Pygmy Forth on DOS, and it's a Forth that makes good use of blocks and / screens to some extent, and so that's always kind of shaped my perception of that being a useful facet of Forth, is to have a nice integration with a block editor. So.
Dave Jaffe is the next on my list of participants in this.
Right. I was just thinking about it, and I remember playing around a little bit with Forth Incorporated, Forth, and I think it was Kim Harris who introduced me to Forth way back when, but that didn't last too long. I played around a lot with a version of Forth called Jib Ray Forth, which actually had a desktop and a target version built into it, so that you can develop embedded applications using Forth in a relatively easy manner, and I used that quite a bit professionally with projects that I was working on. So that's my answer. And next person I'll go to.
So it was a CPM?
Yeah.
With a terminal talking to a S100
right.
bus?
Yeah, so the way that it worked is that the desktop version over a serial line would talk to a version that you configured for as an embedded system, and you'd be able to edit your code on the desktop and download it to the target system and into RAM memory, and then test it all out. And then there was a word that would upload it back to your desktop, so you can burn EPROMs and substitute the EPROMs for the RAM in your target systems, so that it would be bootable into your application subsequent to that. That makes sense?
Yes. So Ken mentioned in the chat that he was on a ZX81.
Yeah.
What was the nature of Husband Forth? Where did it come from?
Well, it was a replacement ROM, around about 83 or 84, and it cost about $30. And a friend and we chipped in for it, and then we copied it. And it was a multitasking Forth that completely took over the ZX81, and it booted to Forth. But as a bit of historical context, I went through high school at a time where we only knew about BASIC, and we might have heard of assembly language. And then one of my mates who read Byte, he said, "Hey guys, there's this other language that's used to control radio telescopes." So he must have read the 1980 August edition of Byte. And until then, we were totally in the dark, because you only got information once a month in the form of magazines from the newsagents. Later on, I had a Jupiter Ace, and when I graduated, I bought one of Chuck's NX4 Novix boards. And my last fourth was one that I mentioned in the comments, an E4 that's generated entirely using a one instruction set computer that runs sublec. So that's 45 years of fourthing.
So do you know where the husband fourth came from? Was it descended from Fig fourth or Poly fourth or?
I'm not sure. It was 40 years ago, Kevin.
Okay.
However, if you check, you can Google search on husband fourth. It was written by a guy called David Husband.
Your
And
memory is very good.
He was probably is a Brit, and he must have, I'm guessing, adapted maybe the 8080 Big Fourth model. Because I think that is the route how Fourth reached the Z80.
Okay.
Anyway, enough said.
Yeah, Christopher Lisinski, I think you're up next.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I think you can't see me. 1 second here. There you go.
I can see your picture.
Okay, now you can see me. Okay, so I think that it's the green arrays chip that interested me, and so and also the other thing, of course, is Python is all based on a stack machine. So those two things brought me in this direction. I guess I don't have much to say. I just finished a 38-kilometer bicycle ride, so I'm not fully present. Thank you.
So what platform were you writing code for green arrays chips on?
Oh, I didn't. I was just poking around. I did a master's thesis on stack machines recently, so that I was using MeCrisp Ice in Verilog on Pico Ice boards.
Yeah, it reminds me of the very first fourth engine, in as far as I know, was a bit slice device, and you can see the ads in the contemporary issues of Fourth Dimensions. Those were the days. I think that when we talk about fourth engines, it seems like that era is forgotten. But as far as I know, there's no way to resurrect the architecture or the knowledge that was involved in that. The guy that did it later went on to develop tools for developing portable architectures in fourth, and doing sophisticated motion control. And I think he wrote an article about that for the last issue of Fourth Dimensions, the one that was never actually published or printed on paper. But he did a talk, and I think that the material is available online. Make a note that I want to do something about that. Okay, let's see, where are we? Andrew McEwen, what was your first experience with Fourth? There you were designing software for mass specs. Was that it?
No, it was before that. So my first experience with Forth was actually in university, where I typed in a 8086 Fig Forth listing and got it to run on a PC. That was interesting. 24-hour coding marathon. I got most of it done then. But yeah, it was so debugging a indirect threaded Forth from scratch that you only have assembly code for is interesting experience. But that was my first Forth experience, and I kind of used that same model in my first job for a 1806, a RCA 1806 processor, which fit Forth very well. And I've done it. I brought Forth into most of the companies I worked up until around the year 2000, and then I kind of moved on.
What kind of processor is an 1806?
So it's a 16-bit. So the original processor is an 1802. So 1806
Oh, yeah.
is an advanced version of it. So it's
Did it have sex?
rad hard stuff you can send up in satellites. Yeah, 16-bit, 16 registers. Each register could be the program counter or the stack pointer. So like jumping was like just load something in that register and set the program to register 9, and all of a sudden, right? So it was beautiful for Forth, right? Because you load in the code field and you just say, okay, start executing it, and there's no, so one cycle jump through a register. So it's pretty cool.
Cool. Doug Hammond, you're up. What was your first Forth?
I had a Trash 80 back in 80, and Vern Tallman came to a stringy floppy meeting, and he talked about how Forth and the stringy floppy was like having extra memory for the Trash 80. And so I got enthralled by that. I got it, but I found out that their hardware memory was increasing faster than stringy floppy storage space. So then later on, I got a Kumemco system and tried playing with it. But there's a Radio Shack on stringy floppy.
Yeah, that particular tape cartridge may still be in use on certain Air Force planes to download code. That was, I think, the other big application for that format.
I just threw away a whole pile of stringy floppy tapes about 3 weeks ago. I've had them that long.
Yeah, it gets me into this question about if there was some guy that would take all this crap in and try to sell it on eBay, or at least not throw it away right off the bat, I think he could make a good going of it. I had this idea that you could put a front end on the Computer History Museum and tell them to authorize you, and what you would do is donate your stuff to the Friends of the Computer History Museum, and they wouldn't be as picky about what they accepted or didn't accept. A lot of this stuff isn't particularly of historical interest, but it shouldn't go into the landfill or into the e-waste. But the Computer History Museum only wants stuff for the collection. They don't accept things that will go into their collection. So there you are. And they just have to, they feel that they have to just throw the stuff out if they don't put it in the collection. They can't sell it because it wasn't donated with, it's like you're donating art to a museum. They can't sell it. They can't even give it away. They have to accept it into the collection and deal with it on that basis. But the Friends of the Library can sell books. And in fact, I don't think they put books on the shelf that you donate to books to Friends of the Library. So this Friends of the Computer History Museum could accept donations and give the Computer History Museum first dibs, and they could make an effort to preserve the provenance of whatever it is that's being donated. And the Computer History Museum could say, no, we don't want that. And at that point, the Friends of the Computer History Museum could sell it on eBay or divert it in some other way, send it to those folks in Seattle that are more of a collection than a museum and don't feel bad about opening the lid and getting stuff to work with not museum quality methods. Then the Computer History Museum would get a cut of whatever proceeds if this is a money-making operation. Notice that a non-profit is just not for profit. It doesn't mean that you can't make money and divert it to the cause that you're trying to sustain. And in fact, there are lots of not-for-profit institutions that push around huge piles of money that you and I might consider to be profit. And some of the salaries in the not-for-profit regime are scary huge. But I digress. But the folks that I've talked to about this don't seem excited about the prospect, and I certainly don't want to run it or pitch it to the Computer History Museum because there's nobody to do it anymore, as near as I could tell. If there was somebody that were interested in doing this sort of thing, I would give them all my old computer crap and say, here, figure it out. You could have the profits from whatever eBay, I don't know. Are any of you eBay sellers? Okay, I'll take that as a no. I'm interested in talking to folks that have done that stuff and what their lessons learned are. I talked to one guy, and the lessons learned that the gestalt I got from him was don't. It's not a worthwhile pursuit. So I'm hoping to talk to somebody that has a different outlook. The stores that used to do this stuff in the Bay Area were like Weird Stuff Warehouse and Haltech and so on. The last one was the folks that bought Weird Stuff. Anybody remember their name? They were around for a little while after Weird Stuff.
Was it Access or Excess?
Excess Solutions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave. Good memory. Excess
Is
Solutions.
Haltech and Halstead around?
No, they went away long ago. Haltech went away first. That was years ago. They basically lost their lease for this guy that wanted to develop the property and just raise the rent to the non-starter amount. It doubled or factor of 10 the rent. And so Haltech sort of gave or sold all their stuff to Halted and moved out. And the property remained vacant for years and years afterwards. And I haven't been by there. I'm not sure I could even recreate the address. It's probably there on the internet somewhere. If they were around long enough to have a website, thank you, Dave. Dave says it was on Terabella. Good memory. I never went to that part of town except to go to Haltech, and haven't been there obviously in 100 years. But the guy that I think the guy that was one of the principals of that store, I don't know if it was one of the brothers, was a speaker at the Vintage Computer Festival years back in the first iteration, and it was a good talk, but I don't think the video survives to this day. What was that place near the airport? Near San Jose Airport. I think at one time they had this double-decker bus. It may have been an early iteration of Weird Stuff Warehouse. I'm not sure. So let's see. Barb Armstrong, have you gone yet and told us what your first fourth was?
That's it was I was consulting at Xerox in APL and rewrote their long-range worldwide forecasting system in APL, which had been written by COBOL programmers, I think.
What were they forecasting? Weather?
Market share. Fundamentally, they really were. It's interesting that they actually had a Park Alto computer, because the Park was, but at headquarters, really it was paper now, paper forever, and that was just a PR thing, and so all, but. Some of the guys out at the Webster Computing Center, where I was working on System 68, was the APL mainframe, but they had, of course, a whole building surrounded by, high-tech fencing, and you had to go through a double entrance. But I knew some guys that were in the hardware end of things. And when Tron came out, the original Tron, we all decided to, well, get stoned and go see Tron. And one of these guys mentioned this language Forth. And it sort of struck me, wow, this is the first idea in computing language that I've heard that really is significant since APL. And so I got the magazine and so forth. The first fourth that I got was F83, I remember. And the most consequential thing was one time I had a floppy disk that I had all my bank accounts. This is after I'd been pulled down to Manhattan, really, to make the original Cozy. But suddenly my disk with all my bank accounts was dead. And so I pulled up F83 and wrote myself a little routine to go and do an absolute disk read of the first blocks of the disk. And then I pulled that string into APL, and looking at that, I saw that actually at some point there was a bit missed, so that in time, if you will. So everything after that was shifted by 1 bit. Well, I unshifted that in the APL, and then I think probably at that point in time, wrote the inverse of the reading. I wrote an absolute disk write, and wrote that back to the disk and restored the whole disk. So that's my really consequent, but it was F83. But the other thing is, though, that, man, here is a language that goes all the way openly and is into defining things word by word. Wow, this is the complement to the word by word construction of math at the APL, and well, K wasn't around then. But that was it. When the original Tron came out, I can distinctly remember essentially the day that I heard of Forth, and just really, it's great. And by the way, one of the things is I always want to pitch. Some way or another, the ACM has got to go and understand, recognize that Chuck Moore is the guy who's lacking a Turing Award. That is just it reflects badly on the ACM that he does not have a Turing Award.
I think it's an acquired taste, and it may be that certain filmmakers will never get awards, and certain peace prizes will never be awarded, but others will be for no discernible reason. Let's not get into that.
Yeah. It's sort
So
of a
Joseph O'Connor, what was your first fourth, and what was the platform?
My first fourth was DOS FPC. I ordered a bunch of shareware disks, and FPC was among them. That was back when there were 5 1/4 floppies. Most of my I just fooled around with it, and I found that writing for my assembly language class that I was taking at the time, first writing the assignment in FPC, then mentally translating it into assembly was faster than just trying to directly write it in assembly. All right, that was my first exposure to fourth. So I think my second, in a way, was more significant, where I saw Norman Smith's Until. It inspired me to write my own Force scripting language.
And that was the genesis of your work in database coupled Forth systems.
Oh yeah, that was my first stab at it. I used a paradox database for the basis of my dictionary. It's not something I care to repeat. It was so slow, I could actually see words visibly executing on my laptop at the time. But then I cleaned it up. I changed the database access to the dictionary to a hash table. So they have this Delphi has this data structure called a string list, or some of the looping became, I measured the difference. The looping was 250,000 times faster. I kid you not.
Sometimes you just want to get something done and you don't care how fast the computer is doing it.
Yeah, it actually wasn't as bad as you might think, because what I would do is I would write a bunch of primitives, which they would run at the speed of the language that I wrote it in, and then I would only when I had a bunch of them, like 20 or 30 or so, would I be motivated to start writing high-level definitions. So until I got to that point, then speed wasn't much of an issue.
Okay. Anyone else care to tell us what their first Forth was, or what platform what platform it ran on? Okay.
I remember I had this, I think it was PC Forth as well, on a hard disk. I remember Dr. Ting or something like that, and the whole thing came like on a hard disk. That was for the PC, and there might have been some stuff on the Spectrum as well. But I remember that clearly, that it came on a hard disk, and it had a Z editor, and it was all in assembly and all this kind of stuff. So that was kind of neat. I don't know if anybody else remembers that the Forth on a hard disk.
How big a hard disk was it?
Well, big, I don't know. I guess at fourth, I don't know, fourth and all, because it had lots of documentation and stuff, and I guess to put everything on there and to boot properly and everything, it was just easier to get the hard disk. I just remember that, and I think it was the PC fourth. It was the x86 fourth and stuff like that.
Was it a 10 megabyte drive for a
yeah, I don't
real
remember, but
IBM, genuine IBM PC from the
yeah,
early
yeah.
days?
Yeah, but I bought the hard disk, and stuffed it in a PC and looked at the documentation and what reference books, that object-oriented book, that purple book, that was referenced there, and I read that. And I remember on the Spectrum they had fourth, but of course you had to load that off tape and stuff. But so it made a good impression on me. Fourth always made a good impression on me, and separating high level from low level and all this kind of stuff, and how well done. I mean, if you I loaded Smalltalk onto the Mac or something the other day, and the first thing it does is run the computer out of memory and crashes. Well, I've never seen Forth do that. So like the modern stuff is and I used Smalltalk as well in the old days, and now it's complete garbage. It crashes the whole system. So it's like, I mean, the Mac has a bad virtual memory system, and then I guess Smalltalk, I don't know what they're doing if they have a bad virtual memory system, but just to point out, I've never seen Forth do that, so I don't know if we're moving forwards on things like Smalltalk, how it could crash a Mac, I don't know, with 16 gigabytes of RAM or whatever.
Some would say in the early days, if you weren't crashing the computer, you weren't doing it right.
I know, but I don't expect
you had to experiment and try things, and part of the worldview was that you have control of the computer and you want to explore the envelope. And part of that is having a crash.
Yeah, but we have so many resources now. I simply don't expect a virtual machine to crash a whole computer with 16 gigs of RAM, whatever it's got. It's like, it shouldn't crash that. That should be enough. I'm sorry. But I don't know. In fact, one of the things, I know Smalltalk is not the topic, but one of the things that was interesting to me with Smalltalk is it made writing device drivers absolutely trivial, which I thought was really interesting. So some things that are really complicated on Unix could be like really simple in Smalltalk and things like that. It's just depending on what you pick, environment and language makes some things easier and some things harder. So it's kind of anyway, yeah.
All right. Thank you, folks. For those of you that didn't get to talk, maybe we'll do this again some other time. Communicate with me either through MeetUp or send me directly email. For those of you who don't want to do this again, give me your ideas for people that I can invite to speak, or alternatively, volunteer to speak yourself. We're always on the market for good speakers. We're always in the market for anybody willing to talk to us, even if it's some stuff like I might present that isn't all that great. It's important to us to have an agenda and a presence every month. In the olden days, I would either not have a meeting in May because I was away, or someone else would run the show. I tried to do that once with Zoom meetings, and I think Bill Ragsdale said, no, you can't do that. You have to be here every month. So yes, we have to be here every month. Yes, I would like to present good content every month. Yes, it is your job as associate program chairman. Yes, that's all of you, to send me your suggestions for speakers or to volunteer to speak yourself. Otherwise, we will just vanish off into the haze, and that is not to be desired, I'm sure, for any of us. So do your job. Contact me through MeetUp. Contact me directly, forther@comcast.net. Anybody else before we get started with our featured speaker for today?